Hey guys, welcome to the YouTube video. Today it's going to be a collections video. Now, as y'all voted in the previous video, this is a video of all my military knives, bayonets that I have collected over the years. Those who know me know I love military history because it does kind of run in my family, and I've been collecting this stuff for a long time. Probably military knives are probably the first knives I started collecting. Now, be advised, I do have a couple of replicas in this collection because the items that these are replicated after are so rare to find that that's why I have the replicas, just so I can have it. And if I ever find the real one, I will either keep that one as just, hey, it's a replica, or I will just get rid of it and keep the real one. So first thing I'll show off is the biggest item of them all, and that is my replica of a Civil War Confederate cavalry sword. And this particular one was given to me by my buddy Edward, or JJ Jinx. This one is one of my favorite designs. He knows I love Civil War history. Because heck, I am from the South after all. And it's beautifully replicated just like the original Cavalry Swords. And just to clarify, everyone, no, this is not sharp. And I actually did a little bit of digging into history. Any person who knows this will know this. Is when the cavalry swords were first issued, or swords of any kind, they were never sharp. They were always blunt. You could put a sharp edge on them, that's not a problem. But they were always coming blunt, so that way they could be shipped easier. And plus, at a full gallop charge, and this thing sticking out like this, I'm pretty sure you can whop some heads off pretty easily. Beautiful replica. It's made in India, so they do make pretty fine replicas. And even some of the Civil War guys I know would actually use this in reenactments because it's a replica, so you're not afraid of dinging it up and actually clashing swords with it. It's a beautiful replica, and even the scabbard is replicated just like the original ones. So overall, if you want a nice replica, go on Bud K and get yourself one of these. Next is the machetes I've collected. Now, I don't got many of them. First is my French Colonial machete, Vietnam. And I mistakenly thought this was World War I. And my mistake, my apologies. And how I found out was very simple. This particular type design machete was issued by the Colonial Army all the way from World War I to World War II and Vietnam. And the design changed a little bit over the years, but enough to where you can tell which was which. And this particular design is from Vietnam, judging from the handle. And the original ones, the ones from World War I, mainly had a different style handle, and they had brass rivets. And then later on in World War II, the same thing. The handle had brass rivets, and it was a slightly different design. And then in Vietnam, they chose this design, where it's a nice little chopper. Beautiful design. Again, one of my favorite finds at a flea market. Be advised, it did not look this good when I got it. When I first got it, it was totally corroded and the handle was splitting apart. And this is still the original handle. And what I did is I filled the gaps with epoxy and reclamped it shut and let it dry, and then gently hand sanded the epoxy off. And now you can't even tell the handle's been repaired. And then I went to work on the blade and I completely hand sanded it all by hand because I didn't want to risk doing anything to this by machine. Beautiful machete, and I would love to try to find the original scabbard that went with this, but they're not very easy to find. And this thing has got some weight to it. I mean, this thing looks like you could definitely whack someone's hand clean off with it. Beautiful design. Next is another one of my machetes that are military. This is an Ontario Vietnam machete. This particular one was issued to the U.S. troops during Vietnam. And Ontario's been issuing machetes to the military since World War I. And the World War I ones look very different. Then when you go on to the World War II ones, they look a little different. And then, of course, to the Vietnam ones. This one still has the original plastic handle. And it still has the U.S. Ontario mark on it. This one I found for a heck of a steal. This I found at a pawn shop for $12, and I took it without even asking. I mean, 'cause it's a beautiful old machete, and I mean, finding something like this is very hard to come by because they're always beat up or non-recognizable. Good machete, one of my favorite finds. Next is one of my definitely favorites. If you're going to start collecting anything U.S. military, you got to start where it all began. And that is an original Civil War bayonet from 1860. This is a U.S. bayonet. Very rare, and it's still in really good shape. You can still see the groove in it and the U.S. mark. And you can still actually attach this to a gun, and it's still got the perfect spike form. One of my favorite finds. I was waiting to find one of these for a long time. I've always wanted one of these, and when I finally was able to get one, I bought it without hesitation. I bought one for my father, too. Now, if I can only find the gun, that goes to it. Next is my Soviet Mosin Nagant 91/30 bayonet, where it's got the spiked bayonet on the front of it. Beautiful. My brother actually got this for me. It's still got the original blued finish. Again, one of my favorites. Still got all the numbers and even the little spring-loaded guard right there. This particular one is World War II. And then again, World War II is a British Lee Enfield Mark II spike bayonet. Brand new, never even been used. Found this at a local pawn shop. And that was a good find. That's one of my favorites. Next is my... I always forget some of the names, that's why I wrote all this down. And I always recommend, if you're going to start collecting, make sure to write all this stuff down, so if you forget, like I do sometimes, because you have such a big collection, never hurts to find out what it is. Here we go. This is a German Mauser 1908 bayonet. My father helped me get this. The frog, my brother found for me. And my father found an army surplus place, and he bought 4 bayonets, 2 for him, 2 for me, and this is one of the ones he got for me. This is in perfect shape. The problem is it was covered with cosmoline, so before we even did anything to these, we gave these a bath and some nice Dawn to get rid of all that grease. And man, these are beautiful. This is definitely one of those knives you would see just... That would definitely be a severe trench weapon. And it's still got the original bayonet scabbard with it. Again, beautiful design. And then this is a World War II. And like I said, I write all this down so I don't end up forgetting. Where's that? Come on, where'd you go? I need you right now. Where'd you go? Oh yeah, this is a World War II Polish bayonet that I was finally able to find out what it is. Again, this one has a good story behind it. This has an old video attached to it. This is one of the ones I bought with some money that I worked my butt off for. Again, one of my favorite finds. And I even made this sheath for it since it didn't have a scabbard with it. And next is one of my pawn shop finds, of course. This is a British spike fighting knife. Now, not a bayonet, but it's a fighting knife. Beautiful. This one is a Swiss one. Beautiful shape. I love the plastic handle. It feels really good quality, and I love the thick blade stock on this thing. I mean, heck, this is a trench knife right here. And then my buddy over in Switzerland sent me some bayonet frogs for these. Again, beautiful knife. And then next is the other one my father got me. This is a British 80711 bayonet. in near mint condition. Beautiful knife. Sucks the guard's very loose, but... And then again, my buddy sent me a bayonet frog to go with it. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Dad. Next is my... What is this? I think this one's Vietnam era too. This is an MK Mod U.S. Navy SEALs knife. Sadly, it's missing all the internals on the back, but I will eventually find those. This one came from a lot that my buddy JR gave to me. Thank you very much, buddy. Then it's even still got the original sheath with it. And then this one, if I remember right, I got in a trade from my friend Tim. This is a Imperial US M7 bayonet in a M8 case, which is a common thing to happen. Beautiful bayonet. This can go on an AR-15. These are very beautiful. These were issued in Vietnam and in the later on after that. Beautiful, beautiful bayonet. Next is a rare bird. This is a US M5A1 bayonet that's been re-welded together. This one I found at a flea market for only 20 bucks. That was a heck of a steal. This is a rare bird because this is the generation before this bayonet, where it's got the trigger release and the bottom cap right here. Very beautiful. These are some of my favorites when you find unique things like that. Next is my AK-47 bayonet. Again, nearly mint shape. One of my favorites. Even has the original wire stripper and insulator, so you don't shock yourself when you try to use the wire cutters. Like I said, this is used mainly for a wire cutter, so this is for. So when you turn it this way, you can cut the wires with it. And the insulator here helps protect your hand so you don't accidentally shock yourself. Beautiful knife. Next is a cut down M1 bayonet made by Cutmaster Utica, New York. This one's World War II. It was an M1 Grand bayonet that was cut down after the war. I love collecting stuff like this because it shows that it was still used even after whoever was issued this still used it later on. And it is razor sharp. And then next is a... Oh, this one I always forget too. This is a... Yeah. This is a World War I M1 892 that was cut down after the war and probably even saw use during World War II. Originally, this blade was about that long, and I guess who knows what happened. It could have gotten broken or it could have got shot in half, and the guy decided to turn it into a fighting knife. Beautiful piece of history. Hopefully, I can find the original grips that go to this. This one came from one of the lots JR gave me. Next is a World War II U.S. Navy Camillus knife that's modeled after the K-bar knife. Beautiful design. Still got some of the original blued finish. It even still says U.S. Camillus on it. The handle's in really good shape for the age. Most of the time, the handle's always rotten. And I always take good care of these knives. I don't end up letting them get any moisture because then they'll obviously start to decay. And it has the original sheath with it. Again, a beautiful piece of history. Next, this was my very first military knife. This is a Western Pack .0 fighting knife dating back to World War II. Basically the big brother to the K-bar. It's full tang, and it's got some weight to it. This is one of my favorite knives. This was the first one I ever got, and I still got it. And I made this sheath for it years ago. Again, one of my favorite beauties. Next is another one. This is a actual K-bar. This is a K-bar U.S. Navy knife that I cleaned up many years ago. I bought this from somebody who didn't want it for 20 bucks, and I put a lot of work into restoring it. I made this pommel out of lead since the guard's made out of lead. And I made the handle out of wood. Again, this was a long time ago. Again, beautiful piece of history, and I made this sheath many years later. Beautiful piece of history. Next, this is another World War II knife. This is a World War II Reconnaissance Co. U.S. Navy knife. These were issued to the U.S. Navy as utility knives. Even still says USN right there. Still has the original handle. I restacked it, re-glued it, and fixed it up. This one came from one of my good friends, JR, and I made the sheath for it a year or so later. Thank you very much, my friend. Next is one of my favorite finds at a flea market. I found this at a flea market for 20 bucks. This is an Ontario pilot's knife that's been rehandled, but somebody, whoever did a good job. Beautiful knife, and I'm trying to find all these. There's the Camillus one, there's the Cutmaster, and then there's the Ontario. Beautiful, and I love that it still has the original sheath with it. You can't beat a classic. Beautiful knife. Next is my Camillus pilot's knife that I cleaned up a while back. I do plan on getting rid of this and getting one that's in a lot better shape. Okay, down. Okay, now we're getting into the smaller stuff. Here's one of my replicas. This is a Japanese replica of a K-bar. I got this a while back from a friend of mine, and I just wanted to get it just so I can use it, try it out, see if it's actually good quality. And for a Japan reproduction, it's pretty well made. I have thrown this into several pieces of wood. I have split stuff with this. I have jabbed it into a piece of wood several times, and it is held up. The guard's not even come loose. And it still holds a pretty good edge for being Japanese. Well, then again, it is Japanese steel. Beautiful replica. Again, it's just one of those classic knives that I just keep around. And then this is one that I bought while I was in the Queen. This is an M-Tec replica of a K-bar. Now, normally I would not keep this, but the reason why I'm keeping this isn't just a cheap replica. This is the original, officially licensed by U.S. Marine Corps. So they could not make this knife without their approval. And they officially licensed it by the Marines, and that's what makes it collectible. This is an officially licensed reproduction. Not a just, hey, they copied it reproduction. Love this knife. I have used this a couple of times, but I don't use it that often because I want to keep it pristine. Next is another one of my replicas, and this one's one of my favorites. This one I bought off a guy who didn't want it. This is a Japanese replica of a 1918 trench knife. Beautiful, and it's got a solid brass handle. I mean, this thing means business. And this is one of those rare birds you can hardly find unless you're willing to sink some money into it, because these found, even in rough shape, can be worth some big money. And what I would love to do is get some more replicas, like 2 from Bud K, and take the blades out and actually make my own style blades. But this is a beautiful knife. Again, this is one of my favorites, and my buddy Stefan made the sheath for it. So that was 20 bucks well spent. Even for a replica, it's still well made, and it's still made in Japan. And it's still got a solid brass handle. So if I wanted a replica, this would be my choice. Alright. That is all the fixed blades. Now we're going to get into the smaller stuff. First is my World War II butcher's knife. These will be found in mess halls all over. Beautiful, great knife. Makes a great chopper. I've had this for a long time. Next is my U.S. Navy letter opener. I picked this up at a flea market. I know it's hard to see in the camera, but it says USN right on the blade. I know it's hard to see on the camera. And then I got some utensils too. I got some mess tin kits. These are made by UCCO. Both matching and in brand new condition. Thanks to my brother for getting me these. Next is another brand. This is made by Silco Stainless. Again, another military brand. This set I put together from the one I found in the Queen, and from the one I found in the flea market, and from one from the set that my brother had got for me. And then these are just U.S. mess hall knives that I found. Beautiful. Again, still military. And then last but not least is this little fixed blade that I fixed up. This one came from one of the lots JR gave me. And I still have yet to determine if it's military or not. I still think it is because of the way the USA is stamped on it. And I made the guard and handle for it because it didn't have a guard and handle when I got it. Beautiful little fixed blade. Just a good piece of steel. Last is the folding knives. Since Edward mentioned this in his video, I'll start showing these off. This is a Camillus 1982. camp knife, issued to the U.S. military by Camillus. This was one of the first ones I got, and I still kept it many years later. Next is this one. This is a Western U.S. military camp knife that my dad helped me get. Thank you very much. That's awesome. Next is this one. This is a Charade 1982 U.S. military camp knife. Again, in near mint shape. I always keep these oiled and keep these on check, making sure they don't rust. Beautiful. Next is another rare bird. This is a Queen's 1986 military camp knife. Beautiful design. In beautiful condition. I've explained the differences between these in another video, so you'll have to go back in that video and actually see the differences between all these. Because I will be advised, there is difference in all these. Next is, this is the Ulster USA military camp knife that I fixed up. It originally, one of the springs was busted, and I repaired it and fixed it up. Now you can't even tell the springs have been replaced. Beautiful. And then, last but not least, is the Imperial. This is one of my favorites. This is an Imperial 1961 U.S. military camp knife. Again, I fixed up because the original spring was busted, so I replaced the spring and fixed it up. You can't even tell that it's been replaced. Beautiful knife, such a nice piece of history. The only one of these I am missing is the Colonial version. That's the only one I'm missing. Next is another replica. This is a Marlboro's replica of a U.S. military hawkbill. So far, I haven't found a real one, but I'm very happy with this replica. My father got me this. Beautiful knife. And then this is a World War II Camillus hawkbill that my father helped me get. Beautiful knife. Still has the original Durlin handles. Beautiful knife. Now getting into the last ones. This one Edward will definitely like. This is a Camillus World War II Electrician's knife with the original stock numbers still on the handles. That alone tells you this is military, because normally they just made these a whole bunch, but the ones that have the stock numbers on the handle, those are the ones that are military issued. This one's a World War II. Beautiful knife. Next is my Charade Vietnam pilot's knife, automatic. Beautiful. Still even has the original hook in it. This one I picked up at a flea market a while back for $25, which is a heck of a steal. Beautiful. And last but not least is one of the first ones I ever restored, and that's my Camillus Vietnam pilot's knife. Again, it's a switchblade. This one I have old videos on. If you want to go way back in the first videos I made, there's actually a video of me taking this apart, cleaning it, and even fixing it, and even making that little hook, because I made that hook myself. Beautiful knife. Again, one of my first ones I ever worked on. So that's all my military knives. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a video of all my buck knives, of all my Victorinox knives, let's see, or all of my swords, or all of my automatic knives that are automatically deployed. So I guess I'll end the video right here, and I hope you've enjoyed, and as always, stay sharp.